Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and happy Valentine's Day! In 2 days, but you know, it counts. Today I want to dye some layered yarn that evokes the love I feel for yarn and dyeing and the spirit of sending little notes and gifts to people that you care about on this holiday. Back in late 2020, I did a dip dyeing video with, I believe I used blued steel and jacquard fire red, and I love the way the colors combined, and I immediately was like, ooh, I want to use this combination for Valentine's Day. And so, we're not going to use those exact colors, but let's go create a prototype. And make sure that you stay tuned to the very end for a little announcement. For our prototype, I measured out 1.5 grams of Dharma acid dye in blued steel, and then 3 grams of Dharma acid dye in fire red. Make sure that whenever you are dealing with dry dye powder, you are wearing appropriate safety equipment. I am wearing a P100 respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves. I kept these colors separate because we wanted to layer the colors together. And I really wanted a 1:2 ratio of the blue to red. Now, the last time I did a combination similar to this, I did use jacquard fire red instead of Dharma fire engine red. The colors are pretty close to one another, so we will see how I feel about the substitution. But I thought about using the jacquard. I just didn't think I had the quantity of dye that I would need to potentially dye the volume of yarn I want to dye in this colorway. Since we're going to be using all of this dye on the 3 skeins of yarn in our prototype, I didn't worry about the volume that I mixed it into. These aren't really a stock as much as they are the amount of dye I am going to use on this batch of yarn. If I'm going to be scaling up this project, then I will make a stock solution and measure out the volume of the color as we proceed, but for right now, this works pretty well. Rebecca, I would like to give a good note to self that fire red is a lot less pink. It's more orange, more warm toned than cherry bomb, because when I've been using cherry bomb, which is a favorite red, a lot of times I'm like, this really is more like pink. This one I think is more red, and compared to that feels more orange, but I think that it is just a good, well actually right there it is actually looking a little orange to me. But maybe it's the light because it is the evening versus being in natural light. I pre-soaked 300 grams of KnitPicks Stroll fingering weight yarn in some plain tap water. This yarn is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And you can see the removable nylon zip ties I added to secure the yarn. This is a great way to get a good hand on it and help prevent tangles. We want to avoid tangles. Here in my dedicated dye pot that's only used for dyeing yarn and not used for food, we don't have any acid yet. And I am going to add the blued steel in here. The water is warming up but not too hot, so I can rinse out the cup without it melting. That is always something to keep in mind. But I decided to start with the blue and then layer on the red after it today. And I'm not entirely sure what gave me that desire, but I felt like for Valentine's Day, taking a color and turning it more red, really it will probably be on the purple spectrum, but taking a blue and then making it warmer felt better than like starting with a bright red and then making it more muted. I guess I just liked the story for this, combining it this way, and especially because it's less expected, to be honest. A lot of times I'll start with a brighter or paler color first and then move into the deeper color. Now, there's no acid in here yet, and I'm just coming in, ooh, that is not no color. Coming in and adding our yarn in. Now, if you've watched any of my other color layering videos, then you would know that by layering colors on top of each other, you can get depth and tone in here in a way that maybe you would only see if you combined all the colors and did it all in one step. Because by doing it in two steps, when we get our tonal in here, even if it's mostly semi-solid, there'll be some parts that are darker, some that are lighter. And then when we do the red, that's the same, but then there'll be areas that'll be more red, more blue, more purple, all the way through, which I think is going to be really, really fun. Even if the color all over is a little even. When I did my moving forward wrap, some of them were more tonal and some of them had a little bit more variation. So it'll be fun to see. I just added 3 tablespoons of white vinegar and we are heating up. I'm giving it a stir. You can see though, we do have unevenness of color in here, and I'm not going for a perfect semi-solid. So now I'm gonna let it sort of sit and absorb color. The one thing I will add is that there is likely to be variation between these 3 skeins. Like we saw in that other project, they aren't necessarily all gonna have the same amount of coverage, which means that them being one of these could be more similar to a skein that's in another batch than one of the ones that's in the same pot. Even though we'll be layering the same amount of color, at least that's the plan. So anyway, we will see, but I'm now gonna wait. I think I'm gonna set a timer and wait for 20 minutes, but if I see things clear faster than that, then I will let you know. Okay, it has only been about 12 minutes. And I think a lot of the color has absorbed, giving us this beautiful denim blue. I am removing carefully all of the yarn, which is beautiful and tonal. Perfect. You can see we've got variation in here. That is what we want. We don't want it to be super extreme, but I would like there to be some fun tonal nature to this. The goal is to make something saturated and pretty. There's like a hair of pigment left here in the pan, but I am not going to worry about that because we're going to put the yarn back in just a moment. You know, something about Dharma Fire Engine Red is not my favorite. See, it's like gloopy. It really is like blood or something. Not too sure. I mean, I feel like I've had good stock solutions of it in the past. I mean, the pot is warm, not too warm, so I'm able to clear this out, and we will stir this thoroughly. But this color also, it sort of has this scent to it in a way I just can't really put my finger on, but it just makes it not. I think that's maybe why I've been using cherry bomb more. Because this isn't a scent that I notice with other acid dyes. But, all right, we are stirred up. Now our yarn is still warm. I haven't adjusted the position of the zip ties or anything like that. We are not entirely dip dyeing. There's still liquid in here, but I am, ooh, this is making this a cranberry color. I'm adding the yarn and I'm stirring it more this time than I did the last time. And the reason for that, oh, this is perfect. The reason why I'm stirring it more is that there was liquid in the yarn, and so I want to make sure that we can access that red, but oh, look at that. This is what I wanted. It's very cranberry. Funny, I could have used cherry bomb, but by using a warmer toned red, okay, I actually don't know if I'm using cool red and warm red appropriately, but by using a more orange leaning red versus a more pink red, this means that we aren't going too berry, but still being very like cranberry. This is very saturated and fun. So now I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes and then we'll come back and add more acid if needed. All right, let's see. Ooh, it's heavy. There's definitely some color left in there. And it's time to add more acid. 1 tablespoon of vinegar per 8 cups of water is not a lot. So let's see, that's 2. I want to add a lot more than that. Sometimes people ask me why I use vinegar instead of citric acid. The main answer is habit. It's easy. It's already in solution. Okay, so that's a third. 4, 5, 6. It's already in solution, and so it's just easy to have on hand. But a lot of people prefer citric acid because it's odorless and it doesn't take up as much space because since it's a powder, it's easy to, I guess, have larger quantities on hand. But anyway, I am going to let this sit here sort of just below simmer for 20 minutes. I have come to check a few times and stir a little bit. This is beautiful. There is not a lot of color left, but there's definitely a hint of color. We've got areas that are lighter and darker, and so this is just going to be a fairly soft, subtle colorway with depths and shifts and hues and depths of shade, and oh, beautiful. Okay, I am going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to let this go ahead and cool off in the pot overnight. In general, letting the yarn cool off overnight isn't necessarily the easiest if you're going to scale up and you have limited dye pots, but that is what I would like to do today. But given how little color was left in the pot, I could also be comfortable just setting this aside to let it cool outside of the pot. But we will check in the morning and hopefully we won't see bleeding when we wash the yarn. The yarn has cooled off completely, and there's a hint of a little bit of pink that I see in the pot, but most of it is in the yarn, and that is not very bad at all. So now let's go wash the yarn, making sure that yarn is not visibly tangled. I hope. I've only ever had one skein become irreparably tangled, and the best way to avoid that is to add more ties. But I always check all of my skeins in the end, and so I am not yet concerned. Now, there is color coming off. I expected that to happen. And actually, I'm going to fill this back up with water. Remember when I said I wanted to try Synthropol? I'm going to add just a tiny bit. I've never used it before. Apparently it'll dry out my hands, but it should also help dissolve excess dye and help remove it from our water. And I think it's low foam, so we're not seeing a lot of suds, but that might be normal. I'm trying to give it a little more time in here, but I am seeing a lot of bleeding. If this continues, I can adjust the color, although I really like how berry it is. So I'd say it has a slight scent to it, but not extreme. But it's so funny how, but look at the color. Oh my gosh. I mean, if it's a soap that also just helps bind dyes to it, there's like a little bit of color left, but that is substantially different. If this is really working, then what have I been doing my whole life? Now, I'm not saying that it's magical, but we will see. There's still a little bit of bleeding, but unquestionably less than the last time, which may have happened otherwise. So I think that maybe I'll need to use it with like purple pop sometime, which is a color that can keep bleeding for a long time. So editing Rebecca, take note that you want to do that. And that video can be all about the washing. But whenever you have hand-dyed yarn, you do want to make sure that you wash it in cool water and with like colors. Because if I am able to rinse this to clear, which I am very confident that I am able to, there's still some soap in here, but we are almost completely clear. Even if I'm able to rinse it to clear, hot water can dislodge the dye, or if your tap water runs slightly basic, so you have a pH above 7, that can also cause bleeding. So I recommend doing a swatch test, bleeding test, if you're gonna mix a saturated color with a paler color. But I always make sure, to the best of my ability, and there's a hint of pink, but that's not bad. To the best of my ability, I make sure that things run clear. And one other thing you can do is if you're blocking, you can add some vinegar to your blocking water to help prevent some bleeding. If you're worried about that with like a bright red and white striped sock or something. All right. I am satisfied. So I am now going to go put this yarn into my spin dryer, hang it up to dry, and off camera, I'm going to start dyeing up some more. I think, and I've been debating, if I want to make stock solutions to dye up a lot more yarn, or if I want to measure out the dye by grams in batches like I did for this first set. There isn't, the only real perk that there is for doing separate batches is that if the dye doesn't all dissolve when I first mix it, then I know I have consistent amount of dyes per the number of skeins in the pot. So I'm leaning towards doing it that way. But I'm gonna go and dye more of this off camera, and I'll try to keep the first batch separate. I think I'll attach the 3 together with a zip tie, but then I'll show all of the finished yarn and talk about something special I've planned for Valentine's Day. Here are the 3 original skeins that I dyed when I had 3 skeins in one pot, which I think had 24 cups of water. In the next 2 batches, I did batches of 4, one with 24 cups of water and one with 32 cups of water. And let's take a look and compare it to the original 3. All right, I stacked the OG batch in the middle, and there's a little bit more variation, I think, in the first of the 4 packs that I have over on the left. You can see that there are some lighter patches in here and up there. I think I was stirring the yarn less than I did with the original because the pots were a little full and a little more crowded. Nevertheless, it's still very, very beautiful. But I would say that even though technically things were dyed together, I wouldn't necessarily give things dye lots this time because I think that there is some amount of variability in the way that this color is with a larger patch of light. And then here we have a small patch of light. And then it's just, they feel slightly different, which isn't bad. It's just interesting. The final batch, I would say, also has a similar amount of variation. I mean, I think that all of it is beautiful and layered, but it does come to show. It's funny, I was afraid of over stirring because I didn't want the colors to be too monochromatic. I wanted there to be some tonal variation. And I love both versions, the way more saturated all over and the ones that have some elements of light, which is still pretty saturated overall. So I think that you know, you can have to decide when you're trying to replicate something, and if you're trying to crowd one more skein into the pot, that also adds that other variable. I was concerned about storing that I could tangle things, but actually looking over on the monitor, things look fairly similar. So anyway, I'm now going to twist everything up, and I'll be right back. I really hope you all have enjoyed this Valentine's Day yarn. I know that I had a blast dyeing it. And don't worry, I do plan to do an official Synthropol type video. This was technically the first time I'd ever used it, but I want to do some like with and without comparison. I don't know if I'll see much of anything. My hands are dry, but they've been dry because I've been washing my hands a lot because of COVID, so I can't really make a conclusion one way or the other. It does seem like you want to use a tiny bit of it because it took a while to rinse out. But those are my first Synthropol impressions. And now I have a little announcement. I love Valentine's Day and creating notes and giving little gifts to my family and the people that I love. And so I thought it would be fun to use this yarn as a mystery treat yourself Valentine from me to you, or from you to someone else. And I put together a little wrapped package with the yarn, a lace heart stitch marker, and some handmade Valentines that I made just to send a little bit of love, because I think we all just need more and more love right now. And as for my special announcement, most of the yarn I dye in small batches, and so when it sells out, it's gone unless I make some more. However, right now I am releasing some dyed to order slots for this Valentine's Day colorway on a couple of different yarn bases. So you can pick a DK base, maybe a sparkle base. All of the details will be in the listing in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. The link down below, it'll probably be pinned on this video, and so you should go and check that out. As for the beautiful lace heart stitch markers, I do have some left in 4 different colors, and so there will be an add-on option for you to get a random color stitch marker progress keeper with your Valentine's Day yarn, but these will only be available while supplies last. The dyed to order listing will only be open for a couple of days or while supplies last, so if you are interested in some, go and check it out. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and please consider it a huge socially distant hug from me to you, because regardless of the situation, I feel like if you're watching these videos, we all love yarn, and that is something that we can celebrate today. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Subscribe and turn on notifications and all of that stuff. If this particular colorway isn't your thing, my shop is filled with other beautiful colors of hand-dyed yarn featured in my videos. And so it's always worth checking it out, because as you go through the listings, you might get some sneak peeks of things that have not yet been published. Thank you so much for watching.